Okay, so it's 11:03 on my end of the world. I usually start on time. Let's pause that. And people will join us as we go. Okay, is that okay with you guys? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, cool. And
Yes,
so, well, I have two luminaries with me today, you know, and I have Bukola Oluyade and I have Yetunde Anibaba, Dr. Professor Anibaba. And so I would like for you guys to briefly introduce yourself. So the point of doing this right now is people who come later are going to miss your introduction, but they can watch it. They can go back and rewatch it. Oh, wait, I need to record. All right, start. Thank you. We're recording, we're live on YouTube, but I would also like to record on this end. And so we have Bukola Oluyade with us, and we have Dr. Yetunde Anibaba, who are going to introduce themselves. I'm just so excited to have you. They're doing great and phenomenal things in their world, and we're blessed to have them. So we'll start with the award-winning educator, management educator, Dr. Anibaba. Could you please introduce yourself and tell us who you are?
You pretty much started off. Okay, so I'm Yetunde Anibaba, and I'm a full-time in quotes, lecturer at the Lagos Business School. I teach subjects around analysis of business problems, decision-making, leadership, and people management. Done that for roughly 9 years or thereabout. Before that, I was in the tech industry for roughly 4 to 5 years, and then left to do the PhD and get into the academia. So in addition to facilitating sessions on leadership and other topics, I design programs, leadership programs for organizations specifically. And then I also do some coaching, career leadership coaching. But pretty much, I think that's a summary of who I am. Did I miss anything else?
No, thank you so much. That's wonderful. Let's hear Ms. Oluyade introduce herself.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Buki Oluyade. What would I describe myself as? Communicator, passionate strategist. I love bringing ideas to life. Over 20 years, cognitive experience, FMCG, financial services, marketing. And so I've done a lot of work around marketing planning, brand management, stakeholder engagement, and of course, in all of this, leading teams, working with diverse groups across markets and across continents. Currently, I work with Polaris Bank. I'm head of corporate planning and strategy. As I said, I've had my background in food business, in all kinds of FMCGs. So I think I've spanned across different kind of things that I like. I like food. So, and so right now it's all about serious work. So that's about me. I'm glad to be here. Thank you, P. Dots.
You're welcome. Now, ladies, we want to have a conversation with you guys. And first of all, your topic is leading your team through times of uncertainty. What do you mean by that? What does that look like? What are we talking about? Times of uncertainty and leading your teams through that. Okay, Buki, you want to go first?
Okay.
Okay. All right. So straight first, we look at leadership and the teams, and that generally said that if you want to go fast, you go alone. But if you want to go far, you go with others. And that is the really core strengths of leading your teams, taking on people onto a bigger goal and a bigger vision, and you're all running together. But that happens in all sorts of circumstances, mostly normal circumstances. But then there are times that are uncertain, such as one as we are in right now, talking about the advent of the outbreak of COVID-19 that has caused all sorts of disruptions to our lives, our workspace, every other thing. I mean, everything has just practically changed. So at this time, it's the skills need to be slightly tweaked, because what you're dealing with, again, is slightly different. People have to apply themselves differently to get the same or even better results. You have to change the mode of work. You have to change how people are productive and how they measure themselves and how they help you measure them, so that at the end of the day, we all achieve our goals. So again, that's why we're saying leading teams in uncertain times. These are certainly uncertain times, and they call for a 20-winning tweak of the leadership skills that we've always used.
Thank you.
Okay.
Prof?
Okay. So let me put that in. Let me add some context to that also. So when we talk about uncertainty, we're talking about circumstances where the leader's vision, as it were, or the leader's sight is hampered. In other words, uncertain circumstances suggest that you cannot predict long into the future. Now, if one of the responsibilities of leadership is to lead us into a predetermined destiny, as it were, then it would seem to imply that in uncertain circumstances, when the waters are muddled up or the sky is cloudy and all of that, then even the leader cannot see as far as they ought to see, or as far as they would typically have seen, in order to be able to guide the team in that direction. And so it suggests that if the leader is unable to manage those circumstances, then the entire team is down. And I like to say that there is never a leadership vacuum. If the leader is unable to set direction and follow direction and guide people in that direction, then a de facto leader will show up, right? And that person is not necessarily the person that has the vision of the original leader or the well-being of the entire team. So it's absolutely important that the leader holds his position to the extent that there is nobody else to fill in at that time. And in moments of uncertainty, team members really are looking up to leadership to guide and to give us direction, as it were. So if you're not clear about direction, or you don't know how to manage circumstances where direction is a bit blurred, then the entire team is at risk.
Wow. You said something about there's no vacuum in leadership. And so basically somebody's going to step in who doesn't necessarily have the vision of the organization. So they could step in to start their own vision of things. That's what you're saying. So then things get convoluted. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah,
I mean, of course, that's not the only outcome. That's not the only outcome. Yeah, there could be a situation where you actually do have other people that have the vision of the organization, but a lot of times you find that the person that is driving the team is the one that knows the direction, right? So you simply want to minimize the risk of a rudderless ship, as it were. Yeah.
Okay, and also supporting that in that, because leadership is not ultimately a title, that then fits into that concept whereby you don't lead, then someone who feels, look, we just need to go somewhere, we say, guys, let's go this way, because that person will assume that position too. That's why, again, definitions, knowing where we're going, how to continue to hold everyone's hands to ensure that we're all seeing where we're going together.
Absolutely. When you talk about leadership, it's not a title. What is leadership then? You know, like what does it mean to lead? And then what is the difference between leadership and management?
Now, there we go again. It's my prof.
Anyone can start.
Very common question, eh?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So I like to define leadership, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, in terms of influence. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Management is about sustaining. Leadership is about advancing. A
Absolutely.
lot of times, or should I say, most people have managerial skills. Let's just keep things stable, right?
Yeah.
The idea of advancing or motivating or inspiring is typically not within the manager's capabilities or skill sets. Yeah. So that's for me, that's a major distinction between management and leadership, or a manager and a leader. A leader inspires, a leader sets direction, a leader goes the way, as John Maxwell says, yeah, and shows the way and knows the way, as compared with, I know it sounds very, what's that word? You know, one of those things we say, but that's the truth, right? So a manager's business is less maintain and manage tasks. Yeah, and that's typically what a lot of people do, even though they call themselves leaders, right? But when uncertainty shows up, it's not just about tasks anymore, because it's not about maintenance. It's about creating new direction. It's about motivating people to know that there is something ahead that they can work towards, right? So there's a significant distinction between managing and leading.
Very good. Very good.
Absolutely.
Buki.
Absolutely. And so talking about influence and leadership, you find that there is a vision, you've written it, and you know it. But to carry your people along and ensure that they buy into that vision and you can all run with it together is where the strength of leadership comes in. When there's a vision and it's only in the head of a leader, I mean, that it stops there. That means we haven't played justice to leadership, so to speak. So we need to influence, we need to inspire people to do great things. And that means they need to run with that vision as it's been clearly written and take it on with them, and they're able to, in themselves, also become leaders. They're able to, in themselves, also become leaders, you know, so that, I mean, we all run into this thing together, and there's a clear focus. As again, to fall back into what Yesterday was saying, it's not just about tasks and the list of duties. It goes beyond that. It sees the end point. You have the end in mind. How do we get to that end? And you're there in it with your people because you've seen the end and you know how you're going to get there. Yes.
Absolutely. And so it is your recommendation for leaders that they should have, because you said something about not only do you influence, not only do you are you a visionary, because I think a leader is a visionary, but it's also important that the people know your vision. So there should be policies and procedures, you know, highlighted in the organization, even if it's small. Is that what I'm hearing? Yeti?
Okay, do you want to respond?
Yes, that is very important, because a lot of times people have visions and ideas in their heads, and there's no documentation whatsoever of how, as an organization, we would all work to it. Because, you know, really, just when we mention vacuum, it's that same principle. Everybody will apply themselves to different things just anyhow because they feel that is how you get to the end point. But if there's a vision and we know what we're seeing at the end of the day, we then put in processes, we put in all the gates there. I mean, while not allowing those processes hold people down or stop them from being creative, but they serve as guide such that we're kind of like, we're within some boundaries, but we still have the flexibility to be able to apply ourselves and work together and run with our vision. So those processes, frameworks, all those things are necessary. It's just all the bouquet of things we need to ensure that we properly lead our teams and they can respond and truly deliver. Yes.
All right. So, I'm going to ask this question. Thank you, guys. If you're not muted, please mute you. Please make sure you're muted, please. So I'm going to ask you, because both of you are women, okay? And you're in leadership. And so what would you say about women in leadership?
That's a very broad question.
It's a very broad question. You can just take it from anywhere you want to take it.
Okay, so so this is my perspective, and so there's an annual program that holds in LBS, for instance, titled Women in Leadership, and one of the common things that we hear is how people look down on, or well, no, not look down exactly, but how the idea, your ideas as a woman is discounted in comparison with that of your male colleague. And one of the things that I like to say to participants is, rather than focusing on that, my ideas will be discounted, why don't you focus on presenting your ideas in a way that makes sense to anybody? Yeah, so, and I'm not at all discounting the reality of the fact that people, men, people, even fellow women look down on the ideas of women, or the thought or the direction of the leadership of women. But I also think that we need to, first of all, remove that cap of they are going to look down on my idea. Yeah, I don't know, maybe it's because I grew up amongst boys, but I never go into a setting with that mentality. I never ever do. And I find that because I don't, even if you didn't want to listen to me the first time, you would have to listen to me the next time. By the time you realize that I'm not playing the first time, right? So, and that doesn't mean, so I don't buy also into this argument of you need to be like a man. No. I don't think that is the issue. I think the word rationality or being logical is not, and you can take me up on that from a psychological perspective, but I don't think it is a gender thing. I think it is simply a matter of training yourself to think in a way that ties premises to reasonable conclusions, or if you take this action, this is the logical outcome, being able to think like that and to express yourself like that, right? Now, I'm not discounting the fact that we live in a world that truly discounts women's ideas, but I'm saying that rather than going into circumstances and leadership and situations without orientation, let's take that out of the way and simply focus on the goals to be achieved and work in that direction. And we will minimize, even if we don't totally eliminate those tendencies.
Thank you. Buki.
Yeah, so I totally buy that idea. I mean, I think, and I like telling some stories where they apply. I recall when I was in UAC and I was to face my first panel interview. I was leading a sales regional team of all men. And the first thing they asked me was, oh, how do you deal with the men on your team? I said, please, can you expatiate? I don't understand the question. I said, no, it means that, oh, they're men. How do you deal with them? I said, are they workers or are they not? And he was like, yeah, but they're men. I said, I don't see the difference. We've come here to work. We will do the work. If I'm reporting to you in the same wise, it doesn't matter. It's the content that I have in my head that matters, and my ability to think through what needs to be done. And as yesterday said, articulate and put my thoughts down clearly so that everyone understands my position. And if I am speaking and I sense that I am not being understood, I must quickly redress, rearrange, and represent. But to back out is not it at all. It's all about content, what you have to offer. The office place is not colors. I mean, it's a reality we have to face, but I honestly don't go into work thinking, I have a male colleague, I'm going to have an issue because that guy is a male and I'm a female. It doesn't cross my mind, I'm sorry.
Absolutely. But do you think, I love what you said about reposition, I think you said, position yourself and regroup, I think is what you actually said. I think that's really important.
Rearrange and represent.
What did you say?
Redress,
Prof,
rearrange, and represent.
Redress, rearrange, and represent. Okay, good. Now, and that I have, that I think that's really important for any groups of people. It could be young, because I remember I was managing a store. My first job was an assistant manager at a thrifty store. Right now they're called Rite Aid. And this was, I think the volume of that store was like, we were doing like $4 million worth of inventory. And when I first started, and I was assistant manager, and I was 22 years old, 22, 23, 22 years old. And people would come in and they would ask to speak to me, to the manager. And I would say, well, I'm manager. And they will say, no, we mean the real manager, and and basically you're too young. I don't want to talk to you. It was 22. So there's that. And then there's different book languages. So I remember when as leading a university and having conversations with different sectors. I found out that when some people, mostly women, would come to the table and they're leading their different departments, let's say the department heads, and they were living in a different department, what they would usually speak in narratives. They would talk in narratives, they would share stories. And sometimes you could see that the who we call the suits, the people with the money, which are usually mostly male, the investors and the trusts and the trustees and all of them, they would come and they would have this blank look on their face because they weren't getting it. All they wanted was the bottom line. This is X amount, is what is that? This is the value, this is the return on investment, this is what they wanted. So we actually had to go retrain these people on how to address this particular stakeholders because they were losing them. I was one of those that had to change. I had to change that because I tell stories, and I remember my first high stakeholder meeting, it didn't go well. And one of my people had to pull me aside and say, look, Dr. Marino, they're not getting you. And this is why. Because I'm not an accounting person. I'm not necessarily a finance person. So you had to relearn a language. And I think even women or men or youth or whoever you are, whatever your situation, do you not think, like you said, rearrange, the 3 hours that you guys talked about, I think you need to learn what it takes and the vocabulary and the language that is needed to be effective in your organizations. What do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's just reechoing. It's almost like what you call self-realization in leadership, irrespective of who you are. It's just to understand that you have a role. You're leading a troop. They must understand you. If not, you lose them. And in the case where you're talking to other leaders, where you all have to juggle for the budget of the company, it's how you sell your side, how you bring the bacon to the table in this case, how you show them the money, then they listen to you as a leader. So, I mean, as I said, our conversation today is, I will lead in uncertain times, irrespective of who you are. Just let's understand clearly that we must lead with clarity. We must lead with a vision.
Lead with clarity.
We must lead,
excellent,
influencing and inspiring our people. And if we see that people are not getting what we're saying, we must pull back.
Okay, I lost you a little bit there. Can you hear me, Buki?
Okay, at what point?
Just the very last statement that you made.
Oh, no, I just reiterated that after ensuring that we're leading with a vision, that we're influencing our people all right, and that because communication is so critical in their understanding the vision, if we sense, and we ought to sense when our people are not getting us, we must take a step back, quickly put things together again, regroup it, reappraise, and then represent it, just to ensure that we're leading.
Excellent, excellent. And so I love that we had the two, and Dr. Anibaba is on her way back. She had a gen
I'm actually
issue.
right here. I'm actually right here. You can't see me.
Oh, we just
So-
can't see you.
Yes.
Okay. That's it. Okay. Well, so when we started with this thing with the difference between management and leadership, would you encourage managers to, because what I've seen with some managers and is that managers really want, managers are needed because you need someone who is going to keep the policies and procedures in place and make sure that they're being achieved. But do you think that managers should also be trained in leadership?
Absolutely. And so I have an online course running right now called Positive Leadership in a Negative World. And one of the things that, so there's a discussion question about the difference between managers and leaders and what the different participants see in themselves. And having understood the distinction, many have come to admit that most of what they do is management rather than leadership. But then they also immediately recognize the fact that it's not because management or managing is substandard, as it were, right? It is that we must recognize when each is required.
Absolutely.
Because like you said, we must continue to maintain certain things, right? But the question is, if you are dropped in a situation where the things you're managing have completely changed, the module has completely changed, the routines you're used to have completely changed, are you in a position to step into the other hat, right? Or step into the hats where you can now regroup and get your guys to refocus? That's really the question. Because if you stay with a managerial hat, as it were, in circumstances that are, what's the word? I don't want to use the word uncertain again, but circumstances that are shifty. Yeah, that's the word, right? So it's no longer stable and you still want to keep managing, as it were, then you've probably been knocked out of the space. Again, I'm sure we've all heard the story of Nokia, right? It's something similar. They had something that worked. They wanted to keep doing that thing that worked, not realizing that the context had changed. Yeah, and so they didn't switch into the hat they needed to switch to function in this new context, right? So you would need leadership to inspire people. So, I mean, in this situation of uncertainty, people are anxious. I had a webinar with some state employees, under the auspices of LBS a few days ago. And we did a poll. How do you feel right now? And the options were indifferent or anxious. Over 70% felt anxious. This is not the place where managerial skills work. This is the place where leadership, inspiration, visionary skills need to kick in. So it is that skill, it may not reside in the same person, but both skills are required in organizations and they must work together effectively. Of course, the better if they reside, if a reasonable proportion of both capabilities reside in the same person, especially in a rapidly changing world.
But it can be learned, right? It
Absolutely,
can be learned.
it can.
Yeah.
Yes, it can. Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. You guys talked about, we're going to segue into, because you said these are changing times, shifting times, uncertain times, and we require new skill sets to deal with this. So the question is, how do you lead a team in these times? What are some of the skill sets that are required to be able to lead now? And what are some of the trends that you can predict for the future of organizations? That's a loaded question. I have a 3-step questions. Pick anyone you want to start with. Buki, you can start with whichever one of those you want to tackle.
Okay. What are the kind of skills you need at this time? First, we've identified that these are uncertain times. What brings uncertainty is first change, and then the kind of change is unprecedented. It's bringing in a lot of issues around health, well-being, fatalities, and huge mega uncertainties. Now, the uncertainties are twofold. Someone says, look, to truly thrive in this uncertainty, first thing is to get yourself and your team to survive it. When you survive it, there's the future for a business. But if you don't survive it, if you lose your soldiers along the road, then the possibility of the survival of the business is then very grim. So the skill set at this time is to understand that there's a full package that you need to look at. You're looking at the people still being able to work, but being less anxious, going to the survey that Yeti saw. How will your people work from where they are without having to be under any, I mean, before, so let's go into real issues here. When the outbreak started and it was obvious that we were heading towards times where things can't just be normal, immediately, some changes had to happen. We had to say, look, everybody can come to work. Teams, break yourself into 3 and start coming into work by rotation. So that is change leadership. You change your model. And then the next thing is, how do you empower your people to go into that mode? And I was telling you yesterday in some other discussion, it's almost as if all of us, we moved from what you call the opposite of digital. We moved from analog into digital, like overnight. So let's say we take all our workspaces the way it is today. I get up, I go to work, I log in, I do this. We just moved everything online. So we log in, doing the same meetings, and all of us are practically overworked. But it's still a change that must happen. We must get our people to be encouraged in this new space we found ourselves. For example, as we were about to resume again, I already knew you have to check who are your people who have underlying conditions. HR may not be able to get to you as a leader at that time to be able to say, look, this person has this issue, and so therefore you have to take care of them. You are the leader. On the spot, you already know your people who have underlying issues, and you should be telling them, I don't want to see you near the office. Next is, how do you make them productive? Do they have the tools? If they don't have the tools, what do you need to do to empower them? So that's change, that's leading. Then there are those of them who are fearful. You then have conversations with them outside of the normal to say, guys, we will come through this, but we can only come through it when all of us hold our hands together at whichever level you are at it, and we keep working at it on a daily basis till we get through. I think that's a good place to start, right?
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah. So if I'll take it from where Buki left it. So Buki talked about talking to your people, encouraging your people, and tell them you get through this. But for you to be able to do that, you yourself need to be calm, right? You need to project calm. A lot of self-regulation is required here. Now, we're not saying that you become a Superman or Superwoman, no, right? But a lot of self-regulation is required here because you will project the emotions that you have on your team. If you're fearful, you project fear on them. Remember that they're looking up to the leader to set direction. If you're fearful, you project fear. If you're confused, you project confusion. If you are, whatever state you are in, you will project it, right? Saying that you're doing, right? So you need to be, and I know that word has been thrown out quite a bit in this season, but you need to develop a level of agility, right? And Buki said just now how that the organization, they moved immediately online. They checked on this one, who has the tools, who doesn't have the tools. In other words, the readiness to change processes when needed, right, as soon as it is needed, right? The readiness to make decisions on the spot, yeah? And again, the truth is, you don't, I was talking to the Director General, I wrote a case on NCDC, the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, and in one of my interviews with him, he said, look, that in NCDC, we are building the boat as we are sailing, yeah? That is the toughest thing you can do, yeah? Don't wait for the war. Don't wait for the war to build the skills of battle. We know that now, in fact, take this as rehearsal, because we are in a constantly changing world. People are throwing videos around now about how people pretty much predicted that a pandemic was coming. That's because they know how pandemic
did we?
They know the increased population will create pandemics and they're coming up, right? So let's use this as rehearsal. Reflect on how agile you've been. How quickly have you been to change position? Or are you still holding on to the falsehood that things are going to continue exactly the way they used to be? Are you waiting to return to normal? Or you're getting ready for a new normal, right? So those are questions we need to ask ourselves. We need to be able to change quickly. And I know it's not easy, but this is time to ask those real questions about how agile we truly are.
Wow, that's yes. Yes, because we things are changing. We have to be able to adapt to the changing times. And I love what you said about the new normal, because some people are waiting for things to go back for this to be over, and then we all just go back to business as usual. But I think that if we went back to business as usual, then we would have lost something very significant. And I don't think that we'll be ready for the next one, because even if this COVID is over, there's going to be another next, and there's going to be another next. I don't think that, I don't think we're out of, once COVID is over and then where everything is fine, because even the post-COVID is going to be also traumatic. Trauma is just a language. It's going to be filled with complex situations. How about that? That we need to find solutions to. So what you're saying is be prepared. What you're saying is be adaptable and be agile. Be able to almost, I'm also using the word flexibility. You have to be flexible.
Yeah.
You have to be flexible.
Yeah.
You guys, you're touching so many things. How about then what do we do? What do you do with employees or team members who are not willing to change?
Buki, you got that.
Okay, right down my alley.
Buki, take it.
So I have such a wide, diverse team. I mean, I have diverse teams actually that I work with, and the makeups are just different. So there's some people who've been off work because and it's time to come back, and some people are still like so comfortable giving a very, very flimsy excuse. Now, there are those who have been in contact with us all through this period, saying, look, thank you for allowing me to stay with my baby. I wish I could do this. I wish I could do that. I understand that that person really would want to be on our side, but cannot. And immediately the opportunity to empower such a person came up, we threw the empowerment away, and she's good. But there are people who've spent time in rest, and it's time to come back, and they're ready to lay another long story. No, we're not going to take that, because it is unfair on the others who have given their time through the lockdown, through the immediate extension, and we're getting back. Any which way we call it, we'll keep moving whichever way the government advises us to. So it's two things. We empathize with those we understand that their conditions cannot really help them to be at their desks the way it is. And if by some reasons they still can't work remotely, for some reasons, we would understand. But for those who can do either of the two and are still trying to play smart, no, it is not right. One, because it's going to affect the earnings of the company. we're going to watch what we earn and what we pay out. We shouldn't pay out when people are not coming to give service. So it's a very, very interesting balance that leaders have to think about. I mean, in fact, we already know it's coming. So if you are in that space, you'll have been thinking ahead, all the different excuses that will come, the ones that sit within the frame of sensibility, and the ones that sit within the frame of just trying to put wool around your face. So we will have all of that. But I guess most important is at the bottom of it is that we understand that we're dealing with people. People are all different. We must understand the psychology behind the teams that we lead, and then we apply all the wisdom that we've picked along the way.
Excellent. Dr. Nibaba.
Yeah.
Are you saying something?
Well, so again, sorry?
No, I didn't hear you. I didn't know if you were talking.
Okay.
I couldn't hear you.
Okay, so I was just saying that there's not much more to add to that. I threw to Buki because she had a current situation she was dealing with, right? And
Okay.
that we had talked about earlier, so, but I think that's just bottom line. So for instance, in LBS, for instance, we do have people that their work just cannot be done online. Yeah, I mean, once the physical building is closed, there's nothing else for them to do. They're still on, right? But one of the things that a conversation recently with the faculty director was that you can now start getting people to do other stuff. In fact, this is the opportunity for some folks that ordinarily don't have those skills to get on board, to pitch in where we have shortages in terms of the online learning and all of that. Now, would you have everyone willing to do that? No. But I think also the thing to notice that there's some people that may not be willing to do it because they genuinely don't think they have the capabilities to. So with respects to people like that, yes, you would encourage them, you would, give them the boost, tell them how you teach them, you guide them and all of that. But like Buki said, empathy does not translate to embracing laggards, right? And I say that in the nicest way possible.
Okay.
Right? Empathy suggests that, oh, I see where you're coming from. I understand the situation. We will work through it together. That's completely different from someone that has decided, you guys do the work, I'll wait for the salary. Nah, so it's important that we draw that line. It's very important.
I think it's, thank you, ladies. I think this is such a vital topic to even to touch on, because there are people, one of the things I say is you train up or you train out. And I really believe in training. And really believe in, training in all components of it. So if what they're lacking is a skill set, I think that you train them and empower them to get the skill set. But some people are just not for your organization. Yeah. Some people are just not for you. So my job as a leader then, or as a manager then, is also to help them get where they need to go. So you train up or you train out. Either way, nobody loses. They get to be where they need to be, and you also, you're free to bring somebody else in who is going to support your vision. Do you think that it's important? We still have time. In terms of diversity of skill sets or of ideas within a team. So when we're talking about teams, is it okay, or what are your thoughts about having a homogeneous teams of people who think the same, or a very eclectic teams of people who have various skill sets and ideas? Which one is more effective or most effective?
Okay, so again, recently, like I said, I don't know how many webinars I've done during this period. So but one of those webinars also we were talking about leading at certain times, and I think one of the key things that I like to highlight is actually the importance of diversity of thought, because the leader, like Buki said earlier, leadership is not a title, right? It's about influence, but sometimes also you must recognize that in influence can can be vertical or horizontal. It can come from your subordinates, it can come from your superiors, it can come from people on your thought is important at this time world we are in and the changing context we function in. A single person is not able to produce all the ideas possible. In fact, it's a burden no leader should want to bear. So it's important to have people that can think differently and think from different perspectives. And then the role of the leader there is to harness those different thoughts, right? Rapid change requires multiplicity of ideas for you to be able to respond as you move on. So, I mean, nothing but, in my view, for teams, you absolutely need a diversity of ideas right now. Of course, there's certain limits, otherwise you'll all just end up analyzing till you're all paralyzed.
Yeah, you know, you run the risk of that when you think of the conflict that can sometimes emerge from a group of, you know, very, but then the work of the leader, is to be able to tease those out and still bring us back to the purpose and the point of the meeting. Buki, what are your experiences in terms of the diverse groups?
Okay, for team diversity, it's most critical. I mean, if we had a homogeneous team, I don't think we would succeed. The truth, in practical terms, you would find someone who is great at something, another one who is great at that. So when challenges come, if it tips this way, you know who to call. If it tips another way, you know who to call. If everybody could do the same thing, sometimes you're like, maybe you overload one person, or, you know, but once you have that team where different things, different people can pitch different things into the team, it is excellent, because then at the end, you all pitch into the work and you have a fantastic output at the end of a day. And in diverse situations such as this, the response time, the kind of applications you need, the kind of applied knowledge to the work you do, it starts to vary. And so therefore, that ingenuity that comes from different people, from all the different experiences they have, this is the time that it comes to play. But imagine if all of us thought in one direction, we will all just feel, oh, working from home would not work, and that's the end of it, we're done for. Oh, it's going to work great, and then we all stay there. Should the situation change, we'll be hampered again. So it's the diversity is critical, actually. We need it, because when you have different questions, when you have different challenges, you need different people to pitch in different things for you.
Absolutely.
And as a leader, even you won't have everything. You won't have all the answers.
Well, I mean, like, you can just look at presidents of nations. You can look at, you know, they always have a cabinet, you know, people with different, you know, skill sets on their cabinet because you don't know everything. And that is why, you know, it's important that you allow yourself to be an open system and not a closed system. A closed system doesn't bring in information. An open system is the one which is more fruitful, which is more diverse, which also brings in more information into the community. So I think that an organization who does that, I think that that organization is more prone to be successful than others who are very closed, you know, who are closed systems. What do you think? Thank you. So guys, if you have any questions for Dr. Anibaba or Buki, please put them on there. You've been getting comments, but not necessarily questions. At least I haven't seen any questions. You've been getting, you know, people are flowing with you. You know, they love what you're saying. Somebody was talking about agility, adapting. I said, like, wow, that is a deep thought. But I think that we need to. I think one of the things that COVID-19 has done is unveil the lies that we've really told ourselves as a society. So for example, I was telling my kids in education, for example, we've told the kids that the children or the students that you have to get A's and B's, or you have to get a 4-point this, and you have to do this, and you know, all of this all of the expectations and the requirements that we have placed on people. And then COVID-19 happened, and all of a sudden, the UC school systems, for example, for the first time, University of California systems, for the first time, are going to waive SATs next year. That is like, what? But these kids have studied their entire lives, and but next year, all of a sudden, we can go to UC school without SAT scores. So these are some things that we as leaders have to start looking at. Stop doing things the way we thought was right, but it's more efficient and more effective. And so this is why this is, I think what you're saying is so important. So I'll read this. It says, I quite agree with Dr. Anibaba, and leader must have a vision and the skills. A leader can perform maximally as a manager with a greater output. To buttress what Buki said, empathy is actually necessary in a precedented or unprecedented situation. Yeah? In a precedented or unprecedented situation. I don't know, do you understand that?
Yeah.
Okay, you explain
No,
that?
she just said, who the comment just means that empathy is not only for when situations spring on us. Even in the normal course of existence, how we work normally, you still need to empathize. I mean, yes, that's what she means. So precedented or unprecedented. Planned or unplanned situation.
Oh, okay, I see. There was a study, I can't remember who carried it out. I think it was Forbes or something who carried it out and said that they did a survey of employees, and 96% of employees, it was in the United States, 96% of them that were surveyed listed empathy as their top requirement in an organization. Like they would, and 76% said that they would leave a place where empathy was not was not part of leadership, because they could not stand leaders who were not, empathetic. What are your thoughts on that, Yitine?
Yeah. I think even more so now with the millennial and post-millennial generation. They're not standing for that autocratic leadership style any longer. And I find it interesting that, so I think I was training a group of leaders from a bank recently, and they were saying to me, how are they going to deal with the kids of today that in the past, once they said, do this, we simply jumped. If they said jump, we said how high. But that they were giving me cases of young people that had worked for just a few weeks, and when they saw how there was no real concern for the way they saw things, or real concern for the things that mattered to them and all of that, they just didn't show up at work the next day.
They just left.
Just didn't show up. They were like, how are we going to deal with these things? And I said, you start dealing with it by changing your orientation. If you cannot control your own children at home, what makes you think you can control these guys at work? The important thing, you need to understand where they're coming from. You need to engage with them where they're coming from. If you are interested in getting your work done, of course. If you want to do it all by yourself, then by all means continue with the old school master method, as it were, where, rules are final and all of that. So I think that more and more the way we are going, and I don't even think it's just the younger generation, I think even older people are coming to see that, look, why am I going through this? Why am I doing this? Why am I working in a place where I'm treated like a machine? And more so because we now function in a world, as it's been called, the knowledge economy, the whatever economy, whatever name you want to call it, is no longer about machine learning. You need mechanical work. We operate in an environment or in a world now where the nature of contributions you need from your employees are things that require discretionary effort. You cannot list all their job every single thing you want them to do at work on that
Absolutely.
employment letter. You need
Yeah.
them to be willing to give discretionary effort.
Mhm.
And so you must recognize that it's important to see things from their perspective. Otherwise, you're on your own. Yeah?
Thank you so much. We have one question, one last thing that will be our last question, so we're on time. This question is for Buki. How
Okay.
can you manage your employees in a situation when they're unable to work remotely?
Okay.
Wait,
So
hold on, I'm not done. Sorry, I just saw the rest of it. When they're unable to work remotely though the organization has put in place modalities to make it convenient in terms of mobility, but at odd hours.
okay. Okay, so I hope I understand the question, but if I look at using my own situation, the ultimate is the person has to work at some point.
Well, let's have this person ask their question.
Yes, I
Busayo,
think so
Yeah,
too.
maybe we need to get it right.
Busayo, let's get this question right. Can you unmute yourself and ask the question, please? Busayo? Maybe the person doesn't want to. Busayo, you have to unmute yourself. Okay, I can see Busayo, but he or she's still muted. So go ahead and respond in.
Okay, so in an attempt, how do you get your employees to work when they can't work remotely? So there are two groups.
When they are unable to work remotely, even though the organization has put modalities in place to make it convenient in terms of modality, but it's at odd hours.
Okay, I don't understand what that means, but let me just put it like this. There's two schools right now. So some people are at work, we call those essentials. And there are those who are at home who can do their work from home. Then anyone who cannot work from home, but the work is essential, they've made avenues that are available for that person to get to work. Do you get what I'm saying? So it's like this. If you're essential, you need to be at work. If you can't make it to work, we'll find a way to get you to work. So let's even look raw examples. There are few people who live in Ogun State, right? And because of interstate travel, they're like, oh, we can't cross. But we had a session today and a colleague of mine had to go to the office.
Did we lose Buki?
Called him and said, yeah, now you're gonna use.
Looks like
Buki, you're cutting in and out.
Can you hear me?
Can you rewind a little? You broke off a bit.
Okay. Are you here? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I said I have a colleague who drove in from Ogun State this morning to do a setup in the office. And I was a bit concerned and I called him to say, you're in Ogun State. How did you break the interstate travel? And he said, oh, recall that bankers are essential workers. And I used my ID and I was able to pass. So I was like, the other workers who have said, oh, I live in the far, whatever wrong of Lagos that has intersposed into Ogun State, and so I cannot come to work. When they were giving me that excuse, I forgot they have a bank ID for the life of me. And so this is where you now have to cross the line. You see that people they found convenience in the not able to make it to work, or they just don't want to try. As I explained, there are people who have underlying health conditions. To those people, find ways to let them work remotely. If their work is such that cannot be done remotely, if you're lucky and you're like a business like mine, you just tell the person to go to the nearby branch and be useful. There are other things they can do, like what Jason was saying, that they said, how can other people who are doing work that must be in the office? How can they apply themselves to other skills? So how can you help us disperse? How can you help us reduce the queues in the branch? How can you help us speak to customers about other alternatives that they have so that they don't have to come into the physical? There are different things that people can do, but it's very easy for someone to be at that other side and say, oh, I'm in Ogun State, I can't pass, or I'm somewhere. I'm just saying, these uncertain times, it calls for us as leaders, one, to let people understand that if we don't bake this cake, there's nothing to eat. And we all must bake it together.
That's
what
good.
you put into the ingredient is what rises up to the lovely cake we get. We cannot give it all these excuses, and at the end of the day, we expect money to show up. The businesses will run into trouble. So again, that is our role as leaders, to continue to paint these pictures for our people, to let them see and understand that, hey, it's not a walk in the park here. We have serious business to deal with. We will manage everyone who has issues. We will manage everyone who have underlying conditions. But at some point, even that person, if they are, what was that word you used? You said they have to use discretionary
effort.
Discretionary effort. Exactly. People can then say, hey, look, using my own discretion, this is how I will add value at this time. And that is really what we need.
And don't you think that those discretionary efforts are part of building your own skill sets and also building goodwill in the company? And it just creates so much more potential for you as an employee.
Absolutely.
So I always say, if you want to be promoted, you have to outgrow your current situation, your current position. Don't tell me you're ready for a promotion if I don't see it. You see what I'm saying? I don't see it. And those discretionary effort is sometimes what propels you into that next level. You know,
correct.
Ladies, any final words? Oh, doctor, I think you're talking, but I can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So I think for me, final word also is that as leaders, we've said all of these great things we need to do. We've said we need to be agile. We said we need to project calm. We said we need to make brisk decisions and change as quickly as we need to. But I think we almost must recognize that we're humans. So sometimes we also need to just breathe. Yeah, you need to just breathe. You also need to realize that it's okay to be vulnerable. Vulnerability is not necessarily weakness. It's okay to let your team members know that that thing you're going through, I'm going through it too. However, this is how I'm handling it. Yeah. So because what that does is that it kind of like, it's almost like you're depositing into the emotional bank account, and they recognize that, this person is like me. And then you inspire them, if they're really serious about doing anything, you inspire them to give more in these extraordinary circumstances. So don't be afraid to be vulnerable also in the midst of all of these things.
Oh, excuse me, wait a minute. I guess you can go. YouTube apparently, BIMS, I thought you were monitoring YouTube for me. So let's see, YouTube has questions. So Bingpe, unmute yourself and ask it, because I don't have access to it right now. So let's ask the question on YouTube, please. Bingpe?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do right now. Okay, so can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
All right. So,
okay, now we can't.
Okay, I'll get on it. I'll ask.
It is no longer there. But there is that in the post-COVID, it is to pay attention.
Okay, could you type it out or something?
Yes, can you type it, because we can't. It's breaking in and out. You're breaking in and out. So while Bing is typing the question for us, I want to say that one part that we have not really that we haven't addressed, and I will bring you back at some point, is leadership and communication. Somebody briefly touched on it right now. I have found that one of the biggest and most essential skill that a lot of organizations lack, big or small, is effective communication, because things start, communication starts from the top, from the highest, whoever the board of trustees, the board members, blah, blah, blah. And they get the picture. They know what it is, and they communicate it to their leaders, right? But then getting it to the employees becomes the tricky part, because by the time it gets to them, it's been watered down, or they feel like they shouldn't know. And most employees just want to know the why. I know you can share, of course you can share, like, what do you call it? You have like important info, I mean, not important, private communications. But if it's something that has to do with the why of my work, then I should be able to share it. And so we'll come back and talk about that. Let me see if the question has been typed up.
It looks like
Okay, well, I don't see the question typed up, so we'll just, wait, no. It was it's here. Something about leaders need to pay attention to the mental health of their employees at this time. Your thoughts?
It's almost unrealistic to say no. It's like a given. Now, whether the paying attention is done in the technical way of getting mental health experts, as you know, that's not something that's terribly common in Nigeria, but it's getting there. We're actually getting there. But to ignore that now is almost like ridiculous. I think that's the way to, that's my reaction. Right? So yes, absolutely. And even the leader has to pay attention to their own mental health.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can't give what you don't have. So
exactly. I was just going to say that it just spans across the enterprise at this time. That and I think what leadership should do is to ensure that we have the appropriate support that can help deal with that. I mean, everybody has found themselves in this position. We naturally have not been paying that kind of attention, except for the regular, we've provided for the health and all of that. But now, because of the so many implications of all what is going on, we might need to look for conscious support to the organization at this time to ensure that as a total enterprise, our mental well-being and state of health is being taken care of, and we are all together. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much, ladies. I really appreciate you coming to spend time. Dr. Anibaba, thank you. Buki Oluyade, thank you so much. I know you guys are both really busy. We do have trainings. I'm a mental health person. We have mental health trainings, for all your organizations. So come and be a part of it. I think that, if you check us out on somewhere, we're all over the place. Check us out. I think we have one coming up in May 15th. It's in the chat. If anybody has all the other questions that we have, we'll send them to you guys, to these ladies. If you can respond to them, we would email the answers to the participants. People are already dropping off because it's past the hour, and I don't blame them. Everybody's time is important, but I do appreciate the time that you've spent here. Thank you so much. And we will see you another time. If you guys can unmute, if you want to say good thank you to the presenters today.
Thank you for having us.
But you're getting a lot of thank yous.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Buki, and thank you, Dr. Anibaba.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Busayo, is that you? There was
That
a whole
was hard.
question
Thank you,
from
Buki.
you.
Thank you, Dr. Yende Anibaba.
Thank you, Bubi. That's my cause indirectly.
Ah. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye, we got
Bye.
bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.